Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and today's topic is top 10 tips for Power Apps beginners. So we'll go right into it. We'll go through the tips and I'll do a few demonstrations as we go. And this is going to be for people who are just getting started out with Power Apps, or you just kind of already started working on it a little bit and you're just curious about some best practices and tips. So here we go. All right, again, I'm Laura Rogers and this is Power Hour. This is Wednesdays at 11 Central, free live here on my YouTube channel, Wonder Laura. So subscribe, follow me, and we'll get right into it. So the top 10 tips for Power Apps beginners. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And here we are in Power Apps. So as I talk about these tips, I will be doing some demonstrations in Power Apps, so I'll kind of be switching back and forth. If you're getting started with Power Apps or have just gotten started with Power Apps, these are going to be some important things, best practices to remember. So tip number 1, when you're building your Power App, go ahead and build your data source first. So that means if you have SharePoint list or library is going to be your data source, that's wherever the data lives. Or if you have Dataverse, go ahead and build out all of your tables, all of your columns ahead of time, because Power Apps itself doesn't hold any data. It doesn't contain any data. The data is not stored in the Power App. The data is in your whatever data source you choose. I usually use SharePoint as my data source, but the key is to get all of your columns created, get all the right column names, all the right column options, column types, get those done before you start pulling them into a Power App as a data source, because it just saves you a lot of rework in the future. So whatever types of columns you create in like SharePoint or Dataverse, it's going to automatically know what types of controls to create in your Power Apps form. So for example, for your text columns, it will give you text input cards. Choice columns will become drop downs. Actually, they're combo boxes. Person columns will be people pickers, which actually are also combo boxes. And then date columns will be date pickers. So Power Apps will just automatically see what types of columns they are and will automatically know what to do as far as what types of controls to put in your form control in your Power App. So over here, so on each slide, I'm referencing, for those of you who are already enrolled in my courses at iwmentor.com, I'm referencing the specific place in those courses where you can go further into each one of these tips. So, and I'll just kind of mention it on the first slide, and then you'll just kind of see a little bit this extra information on each of the slides as I go. This one, you can find this in the SharePoint Power User. My Power Apps Basics course is considered kind of a module as far as SharePoint Power User. And then the Power Apps Advanced course is a separate course. So this is telling you where to go find that information about each one of these tips. So that's where that is. That's what that is on the right. So I'll go ahead and for this very first tip, I'll go ahead and show you in Power Apps what that looks like. So I have a purchase request list. So if I want to build a Power App based on, for purchase requests, based on a SharePoint purchase request list, you go ahead and create the list. So if you, just to create a list, you go new and choose list. That's how you get started with your list. So this is the purchase request list that I created, and it's just a SharePoint list, and this is just the out-of-the-box form for the purchase request list. But as you can see, each list does have a form. It does have an interface and a way to fill it out. If you're going to be creating a Power App, sort of one of the reasons that you'd be creating a Power App instead of using just this out-of-the-box form is when you want to do more complex logic, hide and show certain fields at certain times, have it look a very specific way, do very specific colors and different screens and things like that. So this is my purchase request list that I created. And then that is in place ahead of time, and it's got all the fields, all the columns, and it's ready before I start creating my Power App. So then I went ahead and created a purchase request app. That's my Power App. And so that's the one, I'll just use purchase request as an example. And if you're a student in my courses, in our Power Apps Advanced course, creating this purchase request app is actually a new lab that I just created in the last month or so. That's lab 6. So if you want to go follow along and do lab 6 at some point later, that's the exact steps for creating it. So this is what we'll be talking about in some of these other slides. So back to the slides. So that was tip 1. Tip 2 is explore the templates. So as you start building a Power App, you probably, might want to get ideas. You might want to see kind of how things are done and kind of see how some formulas are written or the best way to do things. Well, there are a few templates. There used to be a lot more templates. So Microsoft's removed a few of them. These are just built into the product. So Microsoft's removed a few of them. I'm not sure why, but probably because they were just kind of very old, probably like 7 or 8 years old. So when you start with templates, you go to make.powerapps.com, click create, and then app from templates. And then it has a couple of templates there. And then also there are screen templates in any app that you have already created. There are templates that have a lot of things built onto a screen. So I'll go ahead and show you where those are. So if you go to web, or let's see, make.powerapps.com, and then I'm just pretending like I'm starting from scratch. I'm on this create screen. These are the only templates that exist right now, but if you just start with a page design, those are sort of like templates. They have sort of a structure to them. And if you are in your app, so this is the app I've already created, and I go to create a new screen here. These are a lot of screen templates. So the screen templates are really useful as well. They have a lot built in, and they have a lot that you can learn from. So for example, I love this calendar one. It's very cool. So it's like, okay, well, how do you build a calendar in a Power App? It's just right there. So it literally creates this whole calendar for you where you can go into your own calendar. Of course, this is my test tenant, so I don't have much in here, but I've got Power Hour, and so you can click on different dates. Anyway, so it just kind of shows you different ways to do things, and it's got all these complicated formulas built in so you can kind of see how things were done. And then this screen template was created from just the welcome screen template. Now I use the welcome screen template for every single app that I create now because it's just very easy and very pretty and looks very slick and modern. So templates, dig in and test them and see how they work. Now, another big part of this tip is I don't recommend using a template as your production app. I don't recommend taking a template and morphing it to become your production app or whatever you're trying to build. I recommend just using them for learning and kind of looking and finding different formulas here and there, but don't try and take that and tweak it and make it your real app, because what I found is that I think it takes longer and it's more painful to try and tweak an existing template to your requirements than it would be to just start from scratch and then just use the template as inspiration. So that's my 2 cents on that. All right, so that was tip number 2. Tip number 3 is use meaningful names from day one. So as you are creating your Power App, it helps to give things good names, like the screens that you create. Give them a good name, like start the name of the screen with SCR. Galleries, start them with gal. Forms, start with FRM, etc. So if you just let Power Apps give things whatever names that it wants, it will just kind of put these random numbers next to things. And so, like, for example, if I have a button that people click to approve something, I name it button approve. And so here are just some good examples of things to name. Now, how does that work in Power Apps? Let's go look. So here you can see all the names of things down the left side. Like this screen I just created with a calendar on it, it just says screen 1. So I can rename it and I can call it calendar screen. Now, what I have noticed is that I used to do like, let's see, SCR calendar. I used to make a habit of just putting SCR in front of it. But what I've found is that there is this header control. And when you use the header control, I don't know why this is in quotes. I think I was just demonstrating something. Active app.activescreen.name will give that header control the exact name of your screen. So it's actually more efficient to just give your screens just a nice natural language name, because you can use this header control, which is this blue thing all the way across the top, and just let it show the name of your screen there automatically. So then also if when you're referring to things in formulas, so anytime let me go back to my home screen and I'm like filling out a new purchase request, anytime you're referring to something in a formula, like if I am going to do some sort of logic based on what this date is, well, this date control by default, it just says data card value 6. So I could rename it and say, I'll say like DTE is my date syntax, delivery, like that. So then it's just another way to rename things. So I'm not saying that you need to go rename every single thing in your entire app, like every single control. A lot of them these cards all kind of have good names based on what is in them. It would be very time consuming to rename everything, but at least rename things that are important, like buttons, like submit button. I could call it BTN submit, and cancel button. See, I'll just call it BTN cancel. So I think this was actually from this screen was actually created from a template that had basically a form on a screen. So it already had these buttons on there. So they already had kind of a good name on them. But that's the practice that you would go through. So this is FRM purchases. That's the name of my entire form control. And when you're referencing something in a formula, it's going to be really helpful if it's got a useful name that makes sense, as opposed to, data card value 71 or something. So that is naming conventions. Okay, so that was tip number 3. So tip number 4 is going to be get to understand how variables work. So master these functions for set and update context. So set is for global variables that carry across throughout wherever you are in the app. And update context is a more succinct, more contained variable that's only used on a single screen. So a common thing for global variables is to capture who the logged in user is right when the app opens. You can say set and you call your variable current user, and you just give it this user function, which grabs the information about the currently logged in user. And then an example of a local variable is if you just want to do something on a specific screen, like if somebody clicks a button, it makes a form pop up or gives some sort of pop-up message. The pop-up, the showing and hiding of the pop-up message could just be a Boolean variable, true or false, to make something hide and show, but you don't need to carry that information across the whole app. If you get to be more advanced and you have very large apps with 20, 30 screens, and you have a lot of global variables, that can actually affect performance. So the global variables are going to be, it's information that's carried across wherever you are in the app. So it gets to be pretty cumbersome. And if you have a very large app that's getting slow and you have a lot of global variables, it might be a good practice to go through and change them all to just, if they can just be used on a certain screen, change them all to use this syntax, update context. It's a little weird how global variables and local variables have such a different syntax, but they do. So it's set to set a global variable, and it's UpdateContext with these little curly brackets to do a local variable. All right, let me see. Let's see if I have one in here. Yeah, so I created this formula. Now I did a whole separate Power Hour about these basically built-in formulas that you can do, and it's actually kind of an alternative to variables. With a variable, you can make it, it can be changed in different places in the app. So if I have a variable that's that says whether, or like what kind of form I clicked on, or a value from a form that I'm filling out, or just some kind of temporary value, you can actually use the set function and change what that variable's value is just throughout the app as you're using it. Well, if you put something in the formulas box, that's just permanent. That's not something you can change. It just sets that value as soon as the app is opened up. And then just another sort of type of sort of like a variable that you have is collections. And collections are like a temporary list of things. So you'll notice when I created that I added that screen with the calendar on it, it automatically has a variable built. It has a collection built into it. So, and it also has some context variables. So this is the screen where you can get to and see all of the variables in your whole app. So named formulas, that's that one I showed you in this formulas bar. Global variables are the ones that carry across through the whole app. Context variables are the ones that are just on a certain screen. Component variable, I don't have any components in this app. That's more advanced. I did a whole other Power Hour about components. And then collections is just this list of events. It collected this little temporary table. So that's where all the variables are. So take my course and learn kind of in depth all these examples of setting global variables and using context variables for a certain screen. All right, and you all just let me know if you have questions as we go. Okay, so the next concept is a gallery. So the gallery is a type of control in a Power App. There is another similar type of control called a table. A gallery does have a little bit more functionality to it. It's a little more flexible than a table. A table is very, very easy. So a gallery is where you're going to be showing a list of things. So the data source is going to be the items property is what you'll use to point it to where that list of things is, like the name of your SharePoint list. And then the first row of your gallery is referred to as the template. And then this item.field name is going to be how you can put the names of all the fields of your data source in the gallery. And then your galleries even have little layouts that you can pick from. So these are some of the key properties, and I'll go ahead and do a gallery and show it in this app. So right now, what I've done with this app is I've got a list of purchase requests, and this is actually a table control. So look, you can kind of see what it looks like. It's kind of ugly. It's kind of messy. It doesn't have a lot of really good formatting and everything. It does automatically have rows, the number of rows listed here. And it also does automatically have this little sorting and filtering. The filtering doesn't work yet. It's a kind of a new control. The filtering hasn't worked yet. So it does have sorting built in. Now with a gallery, to build in sorting is a very long and complicated process of like formulas that you have to write separately for every single column and all this stuff. So it does have a couple of nice things like that sorting ability, and kind of you can drag columns around, and it's got the number count down there. But let me go ahead and show you, and I'll just create a brand new screen. Let's see if there's a screen that has a gallery on it, header and gallery. So I'm not going to use this one. I'm just going to create one from scratch because I want to show you what it looks like just on a normal screen when you add a gallery to it. So I'll just say gallery. So I'm on the insert drop down, I type gallery, and then these are the newer ones right here. So anything that says classic, those are kind of the older types of controls that I'm trying not to use the older ones. I'm trying to make it a point to only use the newer modern ones. So I've got a vertical gallery. The first thing it prompts you for when you add a gallery is what is your list of stuff. So I'll just click on purchase requests, and then it's got this little template already that's got an image and it's got a couple of fields that it just randomly picks from my data source. Well, that's the first thing I usually do is I usually just go change this layout, and I'll just change it to title, subtitle, and body. And then when I do that, it's kind of picking, it usually just picks a few random fields. It just put the exact same field, the title, in all 3 spots. Let me do a different one. Let's say just title. And so just title, so when I click on this label, it just says this item.title. So I'll kind of make that a little shorter. And then I can put my cursor in. This is called the template. I mentioned that in the slide. This very first row is called the gallery's template, so that I can just add more labels. So as I add more labels, so this one is dot justification. Let's see, let me do something that has more data in it. Status, maybe. And this is all right, here we go. So this is going to show each of the items in my purchase request list, and it's going to show now this item.status. Since it's a choice column, it's got this .value thing also. And then I can do, so it's very freeform. You can just add as many, columns that you want and arrange them however you want to in here. So we'll just say like cost, maybe. Oh, budget code. See if I have any budget. So they're my budget codes. So I've got all these little fake budget codes. So as you can see, whatever I do in this very first row, it propagates down. So if I can even insert like button, insert a button, and whatever I insert in that first row, it just propagates down. I can say, maybe I just want it to be an icon. And I'll say icon only there. And anyway, so you can do formatting, you can do alternating rows, you can do add buttons to it. It's very freeform. And you also have this like a template fill. And I'll say, let's see, color dot light blue. And so when I use the template fill, it gives it sort of a little, it's got little padding in between here. It's even got template padding that it's gonna let me have some spacing. So that's just a quick way to throw together a gallery and give it a nice color and give it some spacing in between the rows. But again, it's very free form, and that's how you're going to be able to have your list of stuff. And then when you go to the on select of the gallery, that means whenever people click the gallery, you can make it go to that item potentially. So I can say like navigate to, what's my screen that has the form on it? Ooh, it says screen 7, so I'll give it a better name. There. My form screen, so I want to make it navigate to my form screen. Navigate, and then when you do this parenthesis with navigate, it just lists what all the screens are. So I just want to navigate to the form screen, and I can do like edit form, and then whatever form the name of my form is, which is that purchase request form. So let's see what happens when I click one. Now what I've done here, now this is, again, I did a whole other power hour about this too, is you need to tell it which item that I clicked on. So it doesn't know which item to show. So I have to tell it the name of the record that I'm clicking on. And this is all very good, basic, fundamental information to just have a gallery that takes you to a form. It's just like every app that I create has a gallery taking you to a form. So I'm going to use a set, and I'm calling this var record. It's a variable that is just the entire row of the thing that I'm clicking on. So I'm setting this variable to contain that whole record. So I'll just click on one, computer monitor. And so now when I go to my form, now it knows which item to show me. So I go to the last piece, something I've already done here, is the item property says ver record. Okay, so I kind of went into the weeds with that one, got a little deep, but that's a really good fundamental set of instructions for you to be able to just have any form in your app, have any gallery take you to that form and show the right item. So you just follow those steps. All right, so your gallery is your best friend. Again, galleries are more time consuming to build and to set up, but they have much more functionality than the table control. All right, tip number 6, understand form modes. So you don't need to build several different screens or several different forms for the different modes. So back in the old days in SharePoint, 10, 15 years ago, and you're customizing SharePoint forms, you had the view form, edit form, and a new form, and you had to go edit. It was 3 separate pages. You had to go edit those. Well, you don't have to have separate screens or forms in Power Apps. It's really just about the command that you're sending to it. So I'll show you what that looks like. Now I'll go back to my screen that I put the gallery on. Now, when I'm saying on select, which means every single control in Power Apps has this on select property, which means when I click on it, what is it going to do? So that's the on select. So when I click on this gallery, this is what it's going to do. So I have it navigating. It's going to the form screen, the screen where the form is, and it's doing an edit form. So that's the function I just added. I'm going to change this to view form. So I'm going to do a view form. So now when I click on, I'll click on this drone one. So now notice that I am in view mode. I can't edit this. It's just, I can just look at it. So something that you can do is when you're building your app is you could have different buttons potentially in your gallery to click, to go view the form versus editing the form. You can do logic potentially on your gallery to say, if the form status is a certain status, take me to the view form, or if it's a certain status, take me to the edit form, or if I am a certain person, if I'm in this list of specific like admins, then you can take them to a specific like an edit form as opposed to everybody else gets a view form. So there's a ton of really interesting logic that you can do based on kind of just what mode you want the form to be in. So when I am creating a brand new one, the new one's the one I didn't show you yet. So when I'm filling out a brand new form, I'm clicking new purchase request. This button is doing a new form. It's doing a new form function and then navigating to the form. So I click new purchase request. Now this is how I fill out a brand new one. But then if I'm going, if I'm on this list of purchase requests and I click on one and I put the view form function in here, now I'm just viewing a form versus editing a form. So get to know these different form modes, and also get, kind of play around with the logic of what you can do. So you also have a default mode. So this one has a default mode of new. So even if I just went to this screen and I just navigated to the screen, it would automatically be on a new form. So you can set the default mode if you want, but I usually am doing logic based on what I click on to get there. You also have modes for the whole form, but again, I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but you also have every single card. So these are all referred to as cards. These all have modes, and so I'll just say display mode. It automatically inherits from the parent, which is the whole form. So it's just going to have whatever the whole form has, but you could give each card a different mode, or you can do logic to tell it to do a different mode based on this or that. So just another thing to kind of keep in your repertoire and really get familiar with when you're starting to learn Power Apps. All right, let's go to tip number 7. Use Power Apps with Power Automate. So just kind of get familiar with what these two products are and which one is best for what concepts. So for Power Apps, that is your user interface. That is your front end interface. The data is in Dataverse or SharePoint or some database, SQL, anywhere. Your Power App is your user interface to that data, to enter data or edit data. And then your Power Automate, those are flows. Those are workflows that do automations for you. So I can do things like anything that involves complex logic, or creating a bunch of, like creating things in other lists and libraries, generating a PDF, sending emails, sending one email based on, different conditions that are going on in your business process. So Power Apps is a user interface. Power Automate is for those automated tasks that go on behind the scenes. Power Automate can even do scheduled flows that can run at a certain time, that can go, look through a list of things and find, maybe all the things that have a certain status and take action on those, like send people emails about them. So get familiar with the differences in these two products. So now there is something cool that you can do. You can send an email directly from a Power App using a function and a connector. So if you have just a little simple email you need your Power App to send when somebody submits a form, you can just do that directly in the Power App without having to have a flow. But especially if you have complex logic or you have a lot of different things going on that's too complicated to try and build into your Power App, then use Power Automate. So, and I have an entire 9-hour or so advanced Power Automate course as well that teach you all this in depth. All right, so tip number 8 is going to be use Patch for surgical updates. So get familiar with submitting a form versus patching. So you have this form control, which, like you saw the purchase request form control that I was using, and you saw how it's just got all the fields in it. Well, when you use submit form function, it just submits everything that was filled out on that form. It's very easy. It's just that one little function. And then patch is going to be very manual. So patch is going to be if you have to do something like just quickly set a status, or just quickly update like maybe one little field, or just quickly have it go create an item and just set certain field values, just kind of behind the scenes without having to have a form control. So get familiar with the difference between these. Most of what you'll be using is just a form control. It's just very simple, but patch is a good kind of supplement to get to understand how it works, so that you don't necessarily have to use a form control just to go update or create like just anything in SharePoint. Lisa says, is it true that embedded Power Automate in Power App needs the user to have the correct licensing? Well, there's no specific licensing you need just to have a Power Automate trigger straight from your Power App. But whatever connectors you're using in that flow, if those require any kind of premium connectors that you might be using in that flow, if they require a special license, then also if you're using the app to kick off that flow, then you would need that license to use the app as well. So it's not really the fact that you're using the two together. It's really just like what connectors you're using. So some connectors have like a little diamond next to them, which means they're premium. All right, so I'll show you the difference just between these two, the submitting the form and the patch. So here I have, this is my form. Now a form is not going to automatically have a submit button on it. So like this is my form control, this box right here that I have selected. And the submit button is something that you just have to add separately. So this is like on, as you can see, it's on a separate part of the screen. So I have a submit form. Now, when I created this screen, I used the header and form. This is the template that I used. So this template actually has something incorrect in it. So I'm going to go to the submit button, and I don't want to reset the form right after I submit it. So when I submit a form, anything that I want to happen after that form gets submitted, I'm going to want to go to that forms on success property. So I don't want to put anything, I don't want to reset the form right when I submit it. So I'm going to go to the form control, and then I'm going to go to that property called on success. So when someone successfully submits the form, that means they filled out all the required fields and they didn't get any errors, then it will navigate back to the welcome screen, or then it will give them a notify letting them know thanks for submitting your form, or then it will send them an email. So whatever you want to happen after they submit their form, you want to put that in the form control. So notice I have my purchase form selected and I'm on the on success property. So that's where you want to put things that happen after it's submitted. So that's the submit form function. So it just submits the whole form. And you're just going to use that if it's a new form, if it's an edit form, whatever you're doing with that form, submitting form just updates it to SharePoint or wherever your data source is. So patching is a little bit different. So to demonstrate patching, I'm just going to go to this little gallery that I created that has, just all these kind of random fields in it that I just threw together. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this just for fun to demonstrate patching. I'm going to make this button, I'm just going to put a little checkbox, and this is going to be the approve button. And there we go. Now, when I click this button, I'm going to make it set this record to have a status of approved. So that then I would have to do a patch. So let me do it something very, very simple like the title. I'm not going to do the status because that's a more complex column type, and I want this to be a very simple demo. So I'm going to say I'm going to want this title to change. So I'm going to say patch. So with patch. And then in the slide, I had a couple of the syntaxes of the different, like creating a new record versus updating an existing one. So my purchase request list is what I'm patching to. You notice that when I'm writing this function, it's letting me know the syntax of what goes next in the function. So I do a comma, and then I need to tell it which item. I'm really just patching to like this item, whatever item I'm clicking on in this gallery, that's this item. And then what fields do I want to patch? So I do a little curly bracket, and that's where I tell it the field name and then what I want the value to be. So I'll do title, and I want it to be Happy New Year. I know this is a silly example, but it'll be a nice, simple example. Okay. And then I close my parentheses here. So I can click format text and it will kind of like split it out for me. So it's just kind of easier to read. But I'm patching to my purchase request list. I'm patching this item, whichever item I click on, and I'm changing the title to Happy New Year. So let's try this out. So this one currently says printer right here, and I'll click it. And now it says Happy New Year. So now that I changed it to Happy New Year, let's change it to, let's do the actual status. So that's how that works, is you just tell it the name of the column and you tell it what you're changing. So with the status, that is actually a choice column in SharePoint, and choice columns actually have a more complex syntax. So I'll go status, and I'll say, I have to put the curly brackets again. Value, and then I'll say approved. Okay, so now I've got like curly brackets inside of curly brackets. So I just had to do this extra little curly brackets and a value thing because of the type of column it is. And in my advanced Power Apps class, I go in depth into all the complex column types and how to do this. So now I can click approve and see that one. Now it says approve. This one says in progress. I'll click approve, and now it says approve. So patching is just a really fast way to actually change a value in your data source without having to open up a form and fill out a form. So, and you could do additional things on here. You can make the button not show if it's already approved, and you can do a lot of lovely conditional formatting in galleries. I did a whole other Power Hour about just a lot of conditional formatting in galleries with hiding and showing buttons different colors, icons different colors, giving things different display modes, like making it disabled according to certain conditions. So that's another that was a really fun power hour. Our gallery ended up like crazy looking with all these different colors and shapes and icons and buttons. So, all right, so that is the difference between submitting a form and patching. All right, and then the next one we have is number 9 is test your app with different users early on. So apps are going to behave differently based on who is logged in. Be sure and do this before you go live with your app. So you have this user function that I showed you that kind of captures the information about the logged in user. And you've also got the users need to have permissions to the data, like in SharePoint. They need to have at least contribute permission to whatever list and library that data is in. You could have a gallery that's filtering based on who the currently logged on user is. Test that with various users. You could have buttons hiding and showing based on if the current user is in this kind of preset list of admins you've defined. You could have different connectors behaving differently based on if users have access to them. So again, it's very important to try with several different users, even create test users for this. And then best practices, test as the submitter. And if you have forms that are going through an approval process where different people are opening your apps and they have different roles and they're approving things, go through the whole process and then test it with different, make sure that you're not testing it as an admin with full control to everything. You're testing it as different users with different levels of permission, like contribute. Again, that's the minimum that you need to have in SharePoint. And then use preview mode when you're testing your app and share it with your colleagues. And also you can try it on the Power Apps mobile apps. So you can, once you've published your app, you can actually test it as just on your phone using the Power Apps. It's the Microsoft Power Apps app for your phone. You can use that to try your app out. So when I am looking at my list of apps here, here's that purchase request app that I've been working on. I can click share, and this is where I can go share it with, I can see who's got invited to it so far. And I can say Power Hour, everyone in Power Hour. And then I can say is a user. So click share. I don't want it to send an email to all of you. So just a little quick tip about this screen is that it does not have a button to set it up to not send an email. So there is a classic sharing screen that does let you turn off the email that it's sending. So I can just uncheck that. So I could say Power Hour. Oh, now it's not showing that group of people that I had selected. Everyone, there we go. Everyone as a user. So then I uncheck the box and then now I can share it with all of you. And so if you are in my tenant right now chatting with me in Teams, then you technically have this app shared with you that you'd be able to see when you go to web.powerapps.com. And you'd be able to fill it out because you have access to that purchase request list in my tenant. So then I can now I've shared it with you, and now I can every app is going to have its own URL and QR code. So I can copy that link address and I can share it with you right now in the chat. And now you all can use the purchase request app. So just make sure you've covered the permissions to the data and the app and make sure that's all in place. And then just share it with who you need to. I just share it with everyone, but share it with who you need to just to get it to, just to test to make sure everything functions okay before you roll it out. All right, so that was that tip. We've got one more. Keep your first app simple and then iterate. So don't build your dream app that's big and complicated. Complexity can come later. So think big, start small, keep growing. So start small means like, think of that low-hanging fruit, those kind of easy projects, just a form that you need to customize or just something fairly simple and kind of start out and get used to it. and get familiar with the interface, and then keep growing and keep kind of adding complexity as you need to. But Power Apps is amazingly powerful. You'll be able to do just almost anything with it. Usually, typically in projects that we get, I can't think of anything that you can't accomplish with a Power App. So it's just a big blank canvas, and you can just make it do whatever you want. So it's very, very powerful. All right, so if you're going through my courses, I recommend starting out in my Power User set of courses. You have Power Apps Basics. Power Apps Basics is a free course. So any one of you can go take it. It's just an hour long. And then I have a Power Apps Advanced course. And then I have a very specific business solution course that I've called Power Apps Approval Panel. And that is a very specific business solution of building a whole approval process in your Power App. So that's your learning path for that. All right, and here is your quick reference of all of the different tips we've covered today. So first of all, we had start with the data source. Always build out your data source first. Explore the templates that Microsoft has provided so you can get kind of ideas and get creative ideas and get ideas for how formulas work and how things are done. Use meaningful names for your controls in your app. Get familiar with how variables work. With set is for a global variable and UpdateContext is for a local variable. Get familiar with how galleries work. Try galleries, try data tables. See which one you like better. Galleries are more powerful, have more flexibility. Understand the form modes, new form, edit form, view form. Use Power Automate. Understand the difference between your Power App and Power Automate flows, workflows. So Power Apps is the user interface. Power Automate's all the automation happening behind the scenes. Understand the difference between submitting a form and using Patch. Also test your app with different users before you go live with it. And of course, start simple and then iterate and grow. Apps can be pretty easy if you keep it simple and kind of keep it in the rails. It's like kind of jumping off the Power Apps cliff when you start needing to do more complex things. So kind of just get familiar with it before you go too crazy. So continue learning. You can go to iwmentor.com. That's our training site where we have all these courses and all these different products. And we have a blog at iwmentor, and I have my blog at wonderlaura.com. Follow us, iwmentor, wonderlaura, and check it out. And also Power Hour, when you go to iwmentor.com, you can click schedule at the top, and that's where you'll see where all of our Power Hours are. And you can also sign up to get our newsletter to be able to vote on what the topic's going to be for the next Power Hour. So I will stop sharing my screen and talk about any questions you all have. Let me see. Okay, so that was really fun. Lisa says, did I do a Power Hour about approval chains for users who were out of office? Lisa, I have put the out of office thing as a voting option at least 10 times. The out of office thing has not been voted on yet. So that's what I love. I know that you submitted that as an idea. That's one thing that I have it on my list, and I keep kind of presenting it every now and then, but it's not a topic that gets voted on. So we haven't done that one yet. Let's see. Any other questions? I thank everybody for coming. I know a lot of you that watch Power Hour every week are pretty advanced. So I hope this wasn't too rudimentary for you, but it's fun. It's always fun covering those best practices and just kind of jumping right in there and showing how it's done. So I appreciate you all coming. And let's see, when is the next Power Hour going to be? It is going to be next Wednesday on, what is that date? The 14th. So I will see you all Wednesday the 14th, and Lisa's begging for you to vote on out of office. All right. See you all next time. Thanks for coming. Please subscribe.